This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Pre-season event for Season 2 of the Danish Esports Racing Championship. The Nürburgring GP circuit plays host to this preview event as drivers from around Denmark get their sights set on the new upcoming season. I am Connery Maddock, and joining me on the English commentary here today, that will be Justin Prince. And Justin, well, we got ourselves a little bit of a preview of what's to come here for this race.
Absolutely a challenging racetrack for these drivers, but a very strong field. Invitation only for some of the best drivers in all the series for what will be an interesting race. 16 turns across this GP circuit, and a lot of chances for drivers to make some passes, but as well, a couple different spots where they can get themselves in danger here in this preseason action.
Track information up on screen. The 5-kilometer circuit, currently 18 degrees Celsius in the air, 21 degrees on the track. Looking a little bit cool there in terms of the track temperature because of the overcast conditions we have here this afternoon, at least in sim time. Very, very gusty in terms of the winds as well. 34 kilometers an hour winds, which is going to be a little bit tricky here today. And of course, we get ourselves a little bit of a look at how the format is going to be set out here today. You can see practice one, that is pretty much in the bag now, or coming up to being in the bag. We'll get ourselves a 2-lap qualifying session in just a couple of moments time, and then we'll have a first race of 25 minutes. Then we'll get a little bit of a break, another qualifying session, Justin, and then we'll get ourselves onto the final race of the evening as well.
Yes, indeed. As you can see with those 25 minutes, though, with the lap times about 1 minute and 50 seconds around that ballpark range, that means there's not a lot of time saved. You don't get a good qualifying run of these preseason races. You're going to need to make sure you have a good qualifying session and try and make no mistakes, because you'll have maybe about 14, 15 laps, give or take, to work with to get yourself to the checker flag at each of these events.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is the format, and this is the schedule. Of course, the first round of the championship on the 6th of November, so just over a month's time before we get to see that. And of course, the season will all culminate in a race on the 1st of April 2020, the final round here of Season 2 of the Danish Esports Racing Championship. Qualifying is about to draw itself to a close in around about 7.5 minutes time here. Drivers just getting out there, Justin, to try and get their laps in, try and get their footing here for the first qualifying session, technically, of the season, even though it is a preseason event.
Yeah, as you can see, the time's about 1 minute 51 second range. Some drivers still in the minute 54s, but you mentioned there with the wind, it's going to be difficult, especially going out from Michael Schumacher S all the way down to the Michelin curve. That's where the wind is the strongest right now. You're driving head on into the wind, which can affect how much speed you can pick up down the straights. But also, when you have this type of wind, it makes it tough with the cornering, because it makes the car want to pick itself up with the off the track a little bit. You can see how much the driver's having to wheel and how much a little bit it is bouncing around the track while having the wind to deal with here.
Yeah, it's a very, very tricky conditions out there. Stone cold track temperature, and of course that wind really factoring in as well. You see the practice times up on the left-hand side of your screen. Number 4 of Lasse back currently top of the timing sheets here in practice, and it's your previous season winner, Alexander Laritzen there, the driver of the 13, currently second in practice. And of course, Justin, he's going to have a lot of momentum coming into this season. He already has a championship under his belt. It's going to be the case of whether he can make the repeat as well.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see if he can do so there. You mentioned the championship and also part of a major organization with John Cecchiotis Esports. And has also had some strong performances in Le Mans 24 Hours and the VRS GT Sprint Series. So he's got a lot of that momentum. Also remember, has that real-world experience that many of our competitors have for this evening's events here at the Nürburgring.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, speaking of real-world experience, you do have the driver of the 60 as well. That's Dennis Lind. That is a Lamborghini factory driver, won the Super Trofeo Championship in recent times as well. So he has a lot of experience, and he mostly got his start in sim racing just basically a decade and a half ago. Our one and only director, Hugo Luis, was his teammate way back then when. So he has both the experience in the real world, and of course the experience in the sim racing side of things as well, which makes him very, very potent when it comes to the racing today.
And I think it will definitely help him for these events by far, for sure, because you can use these tracks to gain experience for the real world, but in turn, once you get onto the real world and see how similar they can be, you can kind of take that confidence and take it to the bank, so to speak, to be able to attack the corners and attack the drivers that may not have that experience. You can already see this in the practice session, taking his way to the NGK chicane much more aggressively on the brakes, and also this time to the Coca-Cola curve. Expect drivers such as that have that experience to be able to attack these corners a little bit later and hold those lines a little bit more square compared to some of the other competitors.
Indeed, just 4 minutes left to go here in the practice session. You see Dennis Lind getting himself down in towards turn number 1. That will be one of the big opportunities when it comes to the racing here today. Of course, this Nürburgring racetrack not really all that friendly when it comes to overtaking, but once these guys get side by side coming through turn 1 and of course the Mercedes arena all the way up until turn 4, there can be some very good battling indeed. So definitely keep an eye on that portion of the circuit throughout these races here today. Just a good couple of drivers up and down the field. You can see the top 12 on the left hand side of your screen rounded out there by Holmgaard. I'm just having a look at the times. The top 9 drivers are currently separated by a second here in practice, and everyone else a little bit further back is looking pretty close. So there's not really all that much to separate your drivers, at least in the mid-pack when it comes to these practice times.
Yeah, it can make it very difficult even in that mid-pack though, because if you have a bunch of drivers that are nearly identical in times, it can make it difficult to even get a proper run to pass even in the passing zones today. You mentioned there the first corner being one of the main options to pass. Also keep an eye, I think, on the Dunlap curve today. And wouldn't be surprised to see drivers try and get a run to the Coca-Cola curve and try and carry some of the momentum in down that front straightaway to be able to set themselves up for the passes here today. So there's a few of those opportunities here, Connery. But you can also see many times, though, that exit of turn 1 with that transition is going to be dangerous, as well as the Mercedes arena.
Yeah, of course, and you talk about other portions of this racetrack as well. You talk about coming towards the end of the lap where you have what is the NGK chicane. Of course, well, at least on this particular layout, we are technically not using the chicane. It says Nürburgring Grand Prix layout, no chicane. So what we would call the NGK chicane is more like a little bit of the WEC chicane, shall we say. So you're still having to very much steer the car through there, but you don't have to slam on the brakes like you do down in towards what we would call the GP chicane towards the latter end of the lap there just then.
Yeah, some of the Formula 1 cars specifically use that very tighter chicane here. It's a bit more of a sweep, you mentioned, so you're able to carry a bit more speed, about sometimes 80, 90 miles per hour for comparison's sake. But some drivers might take it carefully. We just see moments ago, for example, a car already spin themselves out on that chicane. If you can't get that proper arc in, though, it might set yourself up for that dive towards the bottom part of the track, towards the Coca-Cola curve. heading towards the start and finish line here. So it could be very crucial and could be a spot where some drivers pick up some X's today.
Yeah, and well, just have a little bit of a double check of that instant limit. The instant limit stands at 17 here today, and of course, with the races being 25 minutes long, something has to go absolutely catastrophically wrong if you're going to get to that limit here today. So I'm not expecting anyone to adventure over the instant limit here for this one, but I have been wrong on a good few occasions. But right now, everyone just sort of on their final laps here of practice before we get ourselves to that 2-lap qualifying session. We've got Lasse back at the top of the timing sheets right now. You can see the view of that Prologue React esports car as he heads his way through the exit of the Mercedes arena. And of course, you can actually use out of turn 4 a good amount of the track limits there. It's not really going to penalize you here in iRacing, so you can step a good amount of those tires out of line. But down in towards the sort of the next section here, in towards turn 6, in towards turn 7 of the Ford curve. You know, I've seen moves attempted down into there, but it's a very, very tough one to pull off. But we are drawing to a close here in this practice session. Just 3 seconds remaining here in this one. Checkered flag out there on circuit, and we'll get ourselves over to qualifying. Those are your practice results up on screen for you now, and I can't wait to get qualifying started here, Justin.
Absolutely, very quick times, lots of grip on this track. As we mentioned, that track temperature very low with these overcast skies. That means the pace is going to be very quick, but that also means it could be very tight for these drivers carrying a lot of speed in these corners. Already, the times in practice separated by just about a second or so in that top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost exactly a second between 1st and 10th there in the practice results, and things looking pretty close, within a couple of tenths of a second of each other, a little bit further back. That is cycling down to P20 here today. We do have 27 cars scored. We have 29 currently connected up to the server. So that's everyone that's managed to get themselves a lap in practice. The drivers in qualifying are currently on their outlaps right now, and right at the front of the train is the number 15 of Martin Bertelsen, as he's going to be the first one, if he gets it clean, to set a flying lap here once he gets around to it.
And you'll see this with a lot of the drivers here, though, before they get to the green flag for qualifying. They'll keep the car nice and slow towards the top level of the gearing to make sure they don't overheat the tires and try and keep them nice and cool here on the iRacing service. I wouldn't be surprised to see him not pick up speed until the final couple corners here, because if you overdrive those tires, it can potentially cost you at least a few tenths of a second here. That's why I think you're seeing drivers such as this one keep themselves nice and patient before they take that green.
Yeah, the number 15 will be the car that's first set a flying lap here today. Martin Bertelsen, as you can see him heading up towards the NGK chicane for that OMR team. And now he picks up the pace, now he picks up the speed, and trying to use those tires to best effect here on this flying lap. Across the line he will go. We'll ride on board then with Martin Bertelsen for his qualifying lap. You can see that current lap being set. That was his outlap. That one does not count. And down into the heavy braking zone he goes, in towards turn number 1. It's quite an elevation change going down into there. I've seen it in real life once when I've been to the Sim Racing Expo, when we've seen the various series racing out here in the real life as well. And through the Mercedes-Benz arena, it's progressively slowing that car down, coming in towards turn number 3, and then change direction in towards turn 4. Use a healthy amount of the exit there as you look to get the speed on the way down in towards turn number 6. And this is simply a place where you cannot step a foot out of line. Directly after those curbs, it is grass, so it's not like a Tilke designed track where you have miles of runoff absolutely everywhere. But that track does bite, Justin.
It absolutely does, and we've seen many times just tapping the grass on the corner entry in these types of race cars will send you flying off into the corner apex and spinning around potentially to the tire barriers. You can't afford to even touch them for a single second here. He nearly tapped them, it looked like, in the Valvoline curve. So have to see if this time will count here for the 15 machine. But looking pretty decent so far. Didn't get the best of run for the Advinbogen. and towards, I should say, the Michelin curb out of the Michael Schumacher S. But you can see how much he's just trying to keep it nice and sweeping and forward. Just getting as low as 83 miles an hour back onto the gas, down the straightaway to the Advenbogen corner.
Yep, just a couple more corners to go here for Martin Bertelsen, as in towards the NGK chicane he goes. Just drag the brakes, bring that car down to speed for the high-speed sort of sweeper section, and then slow it down once again. Going through the Coca-Cola curve, going for more of a late apex there. Didn't quite clip it correctly, but tracks out okay. And now across the line for Bertelsen is a 1:53.247. How's that going to stack up to everyone else as they file through across the line behind him? That is Dennis Lind heading his way across the line, and well, it's a 1:52, mid 1:52 there, but it does not count because he had his lap invalidated as he was trying to get that flying lap done. And you can't forget here in iRacing, if you have an instant point on your qualifying lap, that means that lap is completely and utterly invalid, which I think Dennis Lind has fallen foul of there.
Yeah, and he actually got loose off the corner exit of turn 1 on that elevation change here, and might have just clipped the grass a second time there coming out of the Mercedes arena, so there's a chance this might not count. We'll have to keep an eye here for Lind, though. It was around that green AstroTurf kind of material that might affect that there, but right now at the moment you can see it on the times. Back is on top of the pylon again. He was the fastest car in practice, the 151s, just a 10th off his practice pace, the only driver in that time range so far.
Yeah, absolutely. 6/10 of a second faster than everyone else so far here is Lasse Bak. So really setting the pace here in qualifying. Matthias Woodshow gets himself up into 3rd place on the grid, so solidifying his position on that 2nd row of the starting grid. Everyone else, we're still waiting for a good couple of lap times from strong drivers to come in. We are still yet to see a lap time come in from the likes of Alexander Luritzen, who won the championship last time out. We're still waiting for a lap time for Lind as well, because he had his first lap invalid. Speaking of, we are riding on board with him as he heads his way through the NGK chicane, the left and the right, and then the right once again, right at the end of the lap, tucking that car right towards the inside there. More of a middling apex this time, so there seems to be a difference of opinion on how to take that corner amongst the drivers, but Lind across the line. Will he be able to set a lap time? It does come through. He was P9, gets cycled down to 10th on the grid as it stands, but Luritzen across the line gets himself up onto that front row.
Yeah, the time difference so far amongst the drivers, about 0.3 of a second from first to second lap. So Lind with that off really cost himself potentially a top 5 starting position, unfortunately for him. Let's keep an eye now, Noah, on Nick Madsen. As you look at him, he's one of 5 drivers still yet to record a time, but is looking at a decent pace so far in his white, blue, and black machine. But he's going to have to have a good one here. His practice times would only put him around maybe 11th spot on the track, needing to gain another couple tenths of a second to get into the top 10.
Of course, the track will be cooler in its current condition than it would have been right at the end of practice, so there's certainly a chance that Madsen can improve here in this situation on what would have been his fastest practice time, but no time still set here in qualifying. Gets himself up in towards that NGK chicane. Once again, a bit loose there on entry. That's going to lose him a little bit of time, but he's able to recover it in quite decent fashion. A very neatly taken final corner as well, so he'll get the run to the line here. It's a 1:52.574 there for Madsen, so he does gain around about 0.5 of a second on his practice time. Gets himself up into P12.
And I think in part you mentioned they're getting loose in that final chicane, lost him some time. But so let's take a look at the University of Isabel first positive sim racing machine. And you can see only that's a 1:53. Oof. That's 17th on the track. So Rasmus Bask not getting a good run whatsoever here. But a couple of drivers here getting themselves acquainted with the track are trying to bump up their times here, such as the number 2 machine, or such as Jensen here. We see it in the 9th position.
Yep, Jensen across the line currently in P number 9. Is he going to improve? I don't think he will. That lap will not be valid, as well, the rest of the drivers that we do have out there on circuit, with the exception of Nick Madsen, they have completed their qualifying here. Actually, I'll take that back. Erster's heading his way through the final corner as well, but he didn't quite get a good apex out of that one. So across the line he will go, and it is not a valid lap set for him. So Madsen is the only driver out there that now can theoretically improve his lap time. He's got plenty of time to do it. 1 minute and 15 seconds left remaining in the session. He's getting himself towards the end of the lap now, so this will be no problems here for Madsen. It's always tricky to improve here on the second lap here on the all-tire model, and again, it's a loose moment into the NGK chicane, up over the grass. That will invalidate the lap, even if he got towards the line. You'll have a little bit of an altercation with the pit roll barrier there, but that is going to be the end of Madsen's qualifying. That's pretty much the end of everyone's qualifying. Everyone has set themselves a lap here, but with 45 seconds left in the session, we'll just have to wait for that one to wind down. But let's say back to what a performance here in qualifying. Pole position by 0.4 of a second. Now that is impressive.
Yeah, only driver to crack into the 151 second bracket. There was a couple drivers that were nearly to that range in practice. They just couldn't get it together in the qualifying session with the track open and with the pressure on the line, and with that wind now facing towards the start and finish line, towards that run up there to hold them up. So that lost them some time. But in the closing stages of qualifying here, looks like we're just about all set to go to get racing for race number 1 of this preseason event.
Yes, we are. Just to have a little bit of a rundown of your qualifying order. This is your grid for the pre-season event here in the Danish Esports Racing Championship. Laissez-back pole position by 0.4 of a second of your previous season winner, Alexander Lauritzen. We have a second row comprised of Andreas Jochimsen and Matthias Wadshow there, as we'll get ourselves P5 on the grid. Michael Pedersen there with Kasper Stolze in P6. Ollie Oester starts in P7 with Jim Brinkback there in P8 with Matthias Jensen P9, with Dennis Lind ending up in P10 after having a horrible qualifying.
Mikael Sodegaard starts 11th, but Nick Madsen in 12th. Jesper Holmgaard starts in P13, the 153 second range with Magnus Waithen. And P number 14, behind them will be Daniel Nestrolich with Semi Adrezi in 16th spot. Rasmus Besk starts in 17th with Martin Bertelsen. We followed him on the first lap of qualifying. Mid-53.2 is where he ended up in 18th. Thomas Wick in 19th. Johnny Nielsen rounds out the top 20.
He does, and well, Thomas Larsen, P21, Daniel Sørensen in P22, Lars Jorgensen, P23 with Jimmy Riemer in P24, Jan Scho there, P25 with Dennis Simonsen in P26, and that will round out your grid here today for the pre-season event of the Danish Esports Sim Racing Championship. The drivers just taking themselves to the starting grid. We have a maximum of 20 seconds left remaining for them to do so. You can see Laissez-back, he's going to have the outside as the pole position runner in towards turn number 1. That's always a unique feature of this racetrack. Pole position doesn't theoretically have the best line down in towards the first corner. So big opportunity here for Lauritzen to get himself track position early on in this event. The engines of those Ferraris will rise. We'll have a jump start there. That's Jochimsen getting himself off a little bit early. Will green flag racing here for the pre-season event. Good start, though, for Matthias Woodshow. He manages to get Lauritzen coming off of the line onto the brakes down and towards the first corner. I count almost 4 wide there as Jochimsen. Oh, his problems go from bad to worse. He's been spun in the middle of traffic, cycled all the way to the back of the field. What a crazy, crazy start.
And could see that coming as soon as they headed into the first corner. We got cars flipping. Lauritsen's flipping over into the grass.
Yeah, Lauritzen, your previous season championship winner, involved in an early incident here, and well, that can be said for a good couple of drivers out there as they try to work themselves through the Mercedes-Benz arena for the first time back, has been able to get himself ahead of all of it. as everyone else gets themselves finally single file heading their way through the forward curve. But that was such a confusing start there. We had a jump start, we'd had a brilliant launch from what seems like row 3 on the grid, and then of course we had contact inside your podium positions coming through the Mercedes-Benz arena. And well, we can see how Dennis Lind has been able to benefit off of all of that. This is the driver that started 10th. He's up into 4th.
Well, it kind of helps when some of your top competitors end up spinning around or get flipped on their lids, unfortunately for them, with a 4-wide action throughout that Mercedes arena. But you have to take advantage of mistakes, and that's what he was able to do. Get through the traffic, got through cleanly, and going from there. Meanwhile, Nick Madsen is going backwards, but taking a look at Lind here was already looking to try and make a pass already for 3rd in Sector 2 on Michael Peterson, and was already able to get past there. But Lassie back is coming into the pit lane. The 4 car is ducking down.
Oh, Dennis Lind down the inside there of Pedersen as they head their way through the final corner. That is Lassie back, heading himself down onto the pit lane. Was it a jump start for him as well? I have to wonder, but pit lane all the same for what was your race leader. So this throws a huge wrench into the race lead right now. It's currently Kasper Stolzer that leads this race. He started P6 on the grid, so oh, how things change so quickly there as the number 89 car will lead these Ferraris around. Pedersen down the inside then at turn number 3, inside over Dennis Lind. Lind won't be able to respond, but a time turn 4 arrives. What a crazy race we've had so far. There's the move for Pedersen down the inside of Lind, able to get that pass complete. Coming through the Mercedes-Benz arena, yet more battling though on the live pictures. Vasterson there trying to head his way through on that stricken Dennis Lind, but Lind is able to defend the move there for P3 for the time being, as down the inside, Brinkback then into the Dunlop hairpin. These drivers are looking for early opportunities here in this 25-minute race.
Yeah, you can see how many drivers have taken advantage of some of the attrition already. Plus 10 for Nielsen and Sorensen so far on the grid so far. Plus 9 for Drizzy. But you see many others have already fallen down. Minus 10 for Holmgaard. Minus 17 for Oyster. And more trouble for Lind, losing another spot to Wason after having Pedersen run over the back end of him through that Mercedes arena. He's lost now 2 positions to 2 blue machines in the past lap or so.
Brinkback looking for an opportunity in towards the NGK chicane as well, but it's not really a place on the circuit where you can make those sorts of passes, and Brinkback actually goes too hot into the NGK chicane there and clatters the curves a little bit, and now he has a compromised line coming through the Coca-Cola curve as well. You can just see in the back of the shot there, these guys going side by side. Brinkback actually is backing out of it. Did he get a slowdown penalty coming over to the NGK chicane is the big question. Here comes Janssen then down the inside of Idrissi. You can see that ahead of the driver that we were on board with for just a couple of moments as they all cycle themselves out of there in the order. Jensen, Idrissi and Woodshow here in that group of 3. We still have a potential aggressive move being made there for P3 as Dennis Lind, he's up and down this field like a yo-yo here.
Yeah, he was already as high as 2nd when we seen drivers duck down to the lane there. But now I'm going to have to try and gain some positions back here. Let by Wason after he got a decent run, but already lost about a second or so last lap by. Fighting for 11th spot though is stuck side by side. Sorensen is also looking pretty decent so far. Sporting looking to get inside this top 10. Keep an eye up towards the inside of the corner.
Hello, and also maybe just goodbye as Bertelsen gets punted in the what is going to be the Dunlop hairpin there in the middle of the lap. Sorensen just a little bit too hot into there, was going for a gap that was always going to close as that car was moving over to try and defend the line, but they are both able to recover things, both able to get back out there on circuit, so it doesn't end any of those drivers' races as we see a spinner right in the back there. That is the car of Thomas Larson having a couple of problems. He was running P14 on the start of this lap. He'll be cycled to the rear end of the field now, P22 in that very multicolored Ferrari.
Remember, his teammate was flipped upside down and sat upside down for about a couple minutes or so. But the main driver of the lead is Kasper Soltze with Singularity as drivers continue to squeal their tires across the racetrack. Already a 1.2 second advantage with some of the carnage in this race for the Singularity racing machine.
Yeah, Stoltzer doing very, very well at this stage. He set the fastest lap time of anyone last time around. We've have a couple of passes down into
Ericsson's
P12.
around.
Yeah, I did spot it. That's Christian Eriksen problems.
That's in that battle for 12th you were just talking about, I believe. Actually, those tire squeals were coming from Nick Madsen as he lost it into turn 1. And nowhere for Ericsson to go as he hits him and then gets popped a couple times himself, getting hooked in front of the front bumper of Madsen. Take a look at this. Madsen, early break, gets rammed from behind. Bertelsen goes on by, hooks Ericsson. Ericsson gets spun around, and that causes a bottleneck coming on the downhill portion of the Haghaken.
Yeah, quite a bit of carnage there down in towards turn number 1. And well, when you do have a car spawn on the exit there, it is sometimes pretty tricky for those drivers to recover there, as we'll get ourselves a bit of a replay from the perspective of the number 89 car. That's Kasper Stoltzer. This is the replay of the race start. This driver started P6. You can see the 4 wide ahead of him. How exactly did he get through this then? Down in towards the corner, just finds a spot on the inside to avoid absolutely everything there. And now there's going to be more contact ahead of him. Makes contact with the Altus Esports car, so that's the front end damage that has been plaguing Stoltzer right now, or rather, he seems to be doing rather well with it. But on that first occasion, he was so lucky not to be collected in that turn 1 incident.
I'm surprised there wasn't more cars. You see 4 wide because one of the drivers didn't get a good launch. Then you see the dive bomb for the Logitech G Altus Esports machine. Contact in the middle of the pack. That bundled everyone around. Kasper goes on by. He's filing in fourth, thinking it's okay. Then you see the cars for second spot end up ramming each other and ends up driving right on through. That front nose damage doesn't seem to be affecting him too much, though. It was only a minor bit of damage on the 89 machine, and he's still pulling away by about a tenth of a second last time, with a battle for a few position shuffles along.
I think what has basically saved Stoltzer here is that was a very direct head-on contact. It wasn't a contact to either of the 2 front wheels, so he should be okay in terms of the handling of that car. Yes, it might just be down in a straight line with the drag that's been caused by that damage, but there's no one really to compare it to because the next closest driver is about 1.2 seconds further back down the road. So if those drivers are actually able to catch up, then maybe it might be an issue, as we saw side by side there through Dunlop. That's Idrissi trapped on the outside there. He has to fall back into position as well. So that is 2 positions lost there in one go for Idrissi. He's down to P9.
And that battle really started when Idrissi had a bad run out of the NGK chicane. We mentioned drivers potentially going onto the grass. He went along the rumble strips. That opened up the door for all those cars in this half a lap to just waltz on by and get the preferred racing line. Idrissi now to the back part of 9th spot for the group. As look at Matthias Woodshow, meanwhile. He's got a decent draft this time. He's got some wind behind him to help as he gets the dive.
Oh, contact into the corner, though. That's all gone wrong as Brinkback has to take to the grass as well. Woodshow as well has to back it up, get it back on the circuit as the 2 drivers have made contact into the chicane. And, well, it's another case of maybe this isn't a move to be pulling off at this stage of the race. Woodshow was entitled to that line, but it all gets so tight coming through that section. There's only really a single racing line coming through there, and eventually someone has to back out.
Unfortunately, neither of them backed out. In fact, you've seen the car on the high side try and get the squeeze, but Madsen able to get the pass done. These drivers are fighting very aggressively here for a preseason race, coming to 8 laps, estimated laps to go this time by, I have to say. They're not wanting to give any sort of positions here, even if it's just at the bare edge of the top 10. Madsen with that squeeze you've seen in the Mercedes Arena, though, because he got the squeeze and forced Jim Brinkback to let off the gas, ended up having him struggle, and now he's trying to pull away even with that damaged machine.
Yeah, let's see if he's able to. We've had, well, coming up to around about 14 and a half minutes left remaining of this first 25-minute race. We'll have another one a little bit later on, don't you worry. But what will worry Jim Brink back there is that little half spin coming out of the Dunlop corner, and now he's going to lose one position. Is he going to lose a second one here through the Michael Schumacher S's? Door rubbing coming through the apexes of the corner, but Brinkback, he is able to hold on. And now Jorgensen, who's the driver attempting to make the pass, he comes under threat from Sorensen now coming through turn number 11. Sorensen will lose out on that outside line. Meanwhile, Sundergaard also trying to work his way through on Jan Scho as they head their way towards the latter end of the lap, and that is just sort of the domino effect. Oh, Lind, yeah.
And Lind Scott spun around. We also have black flag for Jorgensen this time by. Gonna have to take a look though for Lind here. He was inside the top 3. And you see that little bobble there on the entrance of the NGK chicane. Just overcorrects a touch, sparks him off into the grass. Nothing can go to once he had that overcorrect trying to avoid the curbs.
Yeah, and not the first driver to get a little loose there down into the chicane. We saw it in qualifying as well. So it seems like these Ferraris are just a little bit unstable coming into that very, very fast sweeper at the end of the lap. But looking back at Dennis Lind, he's been cycled down now to P6 in the running order, which is still better than when he started. He started in P10, but that was a solo car instant at the NGK chicane that was in a way unnecessary. No one helped him around. He wasn't coming under any pressure. He wasn't applying any pressure to the back of anyone. So he's going to be really kicking himself about that.
I think so too, because he was running a pace at the time, I think around the same, if not a bit faster than the leaders, and trying to maybe catch up time, but just overdrove the car a touch. But now you still got 12 minutes to try and catch up to some positions. He's still within range for even a top 5 at the moment to try and do something here. Keep an eye on that though as this race goes on. By the way, that battle for the lead is slowly closing in as the 199 has reeled back in the draft. Should note, he does have left side damage, the 199. While we mentioned Casper having that front end damage, so both of these drivers down a bit of straight line speed potentially with the aerodynamics of the bodywork.
Yeah, absolutely, but it seems to be that Pedersen has been able to close the gap in bit by bit, and now he's feeling the tail end of the draft of the leading Ferrari of Stolzer, so he's going to be closing in maybe a little bit more as he feels more and more of that draft. He is around about 2.5 tenths of a second faster that last time around the circuit, so Pedersen really starting to apply the pressure to your race leader. And that seemingly is all he has to do at this stage. All he has to focus on once he gets into a position to be able to go for an overtake, then maybe the priorities do start to switch. But 8 tenths of a second between them now coming out of the Mercedes-Benz arena as Pedersen tries to work on reeling in that race lead.
He's going to have a little bit of help down the straightaways, and we see this a lot in longer style endurance races where drivers, if they got those runs, usually like to save fuel. With it being 25 minutes, you kind of don't have to worry about that. You can fight for positions such as this here for battle for 14th and 13th and 15th to the point where you're going to the grass and turning each other. That's not good.
Not good at all, at least if you're Sorensen there in towards what is going to be the turn 6, turn 7 area right at the start of the lap. That was Jan Scho trying to work his way through on the outside there. Does get crowded off the circuit, and well, Sorensen doesn't really leave him all that much room to come back on. So there's 2 into 1 always going to go there as long as that driver on the track doesn't yield, as you can see him trying to squeeze back out there on the racing circuit, and that is basically going to only result in one thing.
I mean, at the same time with Scho, I'm wondering, what are you doing? He went underneath not just that white line, but also went off to the grass nearly to try and get that pass in. I don't think Sorensen was going to give him that space with where he was trying to take that. Probably wondering, what are you trying to do? And in the end, the 20 machine doesn't back up. By the way, Jim Brinkback just given a black flag, 30-second hold for him as well as we look at the battle for 7.
Yeah, so penalties being handed out by your in-race stewarding team then. Of course, we've already had a couple of black flags out there. That was Lars Jorgensen and Jim Brinkback have been handed penalties so far in this event. But as you say, the battle for P number 7 still rages on here between Idrissi, you've got Bertelsen, and you've got Madsen also on the back of this one as well. So this might be one of the flashpoints here in this race, as if this race needed any more flashpoints.
Yeah, it's been a pretty wild and some aggressive driving, have to be honest, here with some of these battles so far. But I guess let it out in the preseason now. Don't let it happen in the official racing, when there's the points on the season, right? So these drivers are fighting for everything they can and trying to test the limits, so to speak, in their Ferrari GT3s at the moment. But Idrissi, a bit off and on in this race. He's gained some of the spots back for Bertelsen, but it seems like as soon as he gets some rhythm, we've seen it many times with these high winds, while they've gone down, they've just struggled in the corners much of the race today, especially in that NGK chicane, as well as it seems in that Mercedes arena.
Yeah, it does seem to be the case here. Just to give you a little bit of an update in terms of the battle for the race lead, well, that one is now down to about 0.6 of a second running through the NGK chicane, as this battle for P7 is getting very, very close indeed. Is Bertelsen going to go for the move? It's covered off, though, by Idrissi on the way up into the chicane. All line astern coming through here as Idrissi overcooked the entries of the corner. He went a little bit fast. I'll compromise him on the exit. Here comes Bertelsen down the inside of the Coca-Cola curve. They get close to the middle of the corner, and now it's all about the traction off the corner as Madsen looks to get himself involved. There's a gap in the middle that he might be tempted by, but is he going to go for it? He's going to give Bertelsen a little bit of a bump on the way down the hill in towards turn number 1. Bertelsen, has he outbroke himself here? He has. Idrissi gets shoved out, and that's 2 positions picked up by Madsen.
And kind of seen that towards that way again. Usually if you're bump drafting, it's a way to save, but it was heading towards the braking zone. Bertelsen, again, even when he got some space in an early break for Madsen, as you mentioned, just outbraked himself, and I think it would have been okay. But Idrissi arced himself down into that door to cause the contact, and now Idrissi, again, because in part from the bad run to the NGK chicane, losing more spots on the track. He's now back to 9th position, and Madsen again takes advantage. By the way, Show has just been given the black flag again.
Yeah, well, Jan Show is, he's been given a penalty there as he currently runs in P14. He did start P25, so he's been doing a good job at working his way through the field here in this one, but I think that'll be all for nothing now, as he'll have to come down in and get that penalty served, which is unfortunate, at least from the perspective of Show, but the rules are rules, and we have rules for a reason, as he'll have to bring that car down onto pit lane. As well, we'll have 6.5 minutes left in this race. We have Idrissi and what's going to be the car of Nestararitz there, having a little bit of a battle there coming through towards the end of the lap, and that's Idrissi able to make his way, or rather make his presence known as Nestararitz, as well, he currently logged P10. He now is still in P10, but Idrissi has actually fallen back a little bit as he falls back into P9 after being in P7 at the start of this lap. P number 5 is also heating up. You quite rightfully bring my attention to it. Johnny Nielsen and Dennis Lind looking to go for a bit of a battle here.
And as to be expected, Lind able to try and gain up this time, about 0.2 of a second quicker old lap, and now inside that slipstream of Nielsen. And you can see again with Lind how he's attacking these corners, able to take it about 5-10 meters a corner later than much of his competitors. And most of the time, lots of drivers think of slow in, fast off. Lind's been able to take it fast in, fast off with his confidence levels here. Thinking about it here, it looks like the driver of Nielsen just lets him on go for 5th.
Yeah, that wasn't really fought there from Nielsen. I think he was just kind of spooked. As soon as Lind went for that dive down the inside of the forward curve, he was like, what the hell is going on? And then just, as a result of him reacting and leaving the door open, that means that Lind can just go, oh, there we go, door's open, I can slot myself through, I can get myself up into P5. So right now, I just see a yellow flag out there on circuit. That's Jan Show, who hasn't really been having the best of laps, a few laps, has he? Because he's gotten that penalty, and now he's had himself a little bit of a spin here coming down through turn 6. It's a lazy slide into the tire barriers, so as well as having to serve that penalty. Now he has the damage to the front end of that Ferrari. The engine just completely exposed.
Yeah, at this point...
well, it wouldn't be the engine here, these GT3s, because they're more mid-engines, aren't they?
Yeah, it's more so the kind of the radiators and the fluid compartments and whatnot that are exposed there, but it's been a disaster the past couple of laps now for show with the black flag of the damage. But the battle for the lead is heating up.
Oh, Stoltz has been spun from the race lead as Pedersen heads his way through, and well, the hurt might not end here for Stoltzer as well, because he'll have to slot back into P3 in this race as Matthias Jensen heads his way through to the second step of the podium. We'll have to get a look of how that one happened. Down into turn 1, Pedersen goes very late, and I mean very late on the brakes there. You can see he's 4-5 car lengths back into the braking zone and tags Stoltzer around. I think the sportsmanlike thing to do here for Pedersen would be to let him through, but the situation is complicated since we do have a third party involved here with Matthias Jensen that managed to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, look at this again on Pedersen. I was about to mention this actually as he was getting closer and closer a little bit. Just, I think, seeing the hole, late braked his way in and took it a little too aggressively. I don't think he wanted to make contact there, but you mentioned it there before with the Dunlap curb. The hole's eventually going to close. It tried to close for Stoltzer, and it ends up making the contact, but Jensen able to take advantage here. But now it's going to be curious to see, can Jensen catch up now to the blue machine up in front? Is there enough time? There's only 2 estimated laps to go.
Yep, there is, so not a lot of time to work with here coming to the end of this event. Pedersen leads provisionally from Matthias Jensen and Kasper Stoltzer. That is the order of your podium. Of course, I say provisional because the stewards might just get themselves involved in this one. We'll keep you posted on what happens in terms of that one. But these guys heading their way across the line. 2 more laps to go in this race. Jensen has been looking pretty fast, but I don't think he's quite going to be fast enough to catch up to your race leader of Pedersen, unless that damage on the front left of Pedersen is more than it seems here, Justin.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Jensen has a little bit of damage himself on a bit of that right front. You see those crinkles there, as well as a touch bit on the left front. But it's going to be tough. I think going to be very difficult to try and catch up here, because Pedersen's got a decent advantage. He's only about a 10th or so, maybe gaining a lap at the very most. He actually lost a bit of time last time by, so Jensen gonna need to get up on the wheel to close that 1.3 seconds, or hope that Pedersen makes a mistake if he holds this provisional lead.
Yeah, absolutely. 1.3 seconds between P1 and P2 at this stage as Jensen tries to find the pace here late on in the race, but that gap is looking larger and larger by the moment. It does shrink a little bit, though, coming through the Michael Schumacher S's, so Jensen might just still be in this, but he needs a lap of his life there. Oh, Pedersen, yeah, he makes a mistake in towards turn number 11 and coming through turn number 12. Now that gap looks very surmountable. You can see Jensen wants it as he pushes wide through turn 12.
And that lost Jensen a lot of the time. He just gained back on Pedersen through that bad run of the Michelin curb here. But keep an eye here. Can he close this up? We've seen the dive for the pass last time the lead changed hands. They're going to get the white flag this time by with 30 seconds on the clock, but it's not going to matter. Pedersen with the black flag, 30-second hold to the white.
Yep, so Pedersen will not win the race no matter which way around that these guys finish here. You can see Jensen flashing the lights. He wants to make his job easy. Well, Pedersen makes it easy. It is a swap for the race lead. Down in towards turn number 1. Pedersen, his fate has been sealed by the race stewards here today. Stoltzer will also pick up the position to, well, if he gets towards the end of this lap, he will finish in P2 if he's able to keep it on the grey stuff. You can see Pedersen getting himself out of the way of your race leaders here on this final lap as he has to come down and serve that penalty. But with this being the final lap, I think that one will be served at the end of this event as a time penalty. But now on this final lap, coming through the Ford curve for the final time, it is a 1.1 second gap between between Jensen, and Stolzer right now. And what a sweet karma it would be for Stolzer to be able to get the race win here today. But I'm afraid on the last lap of the event, it just looks a little too far back through the Michael Schumacher S's here. The final time in the first race of the pre-season show here for the Danish Esports Racing Championship. Matthias Jensen from P number 9 on the grid. He was able to negotiate the carnage ahead of him on that race start in towards turn number 1 and through the Mercedes-Benz arena where cars were spinning left, right and center. But Matthias Jensen, after a late race penalty applied to Michael Pedersen, will come through the NGK chicane. There's one more corner to go, and Matthias Jensen will be the pre-race winner for race 1 here in the Danish Esports Racing Championship. Matthias Jensen will win here at the Nürburgring.
And he was quicker than the man chasing him at second spot to the checker flag at Sulzer. But a heck of a run for the real-world driver. Remember, a top 5 points finish in 2019 in this series, able to take that checker flag, even with some of the chaotic circumstances here in this race number 1. That leads the question, how's race number 2 gonna go here after all the fireworks?
Yeah, let's hope that everyone has taken that anger out in race 1 so we can have a little bit of a cleaner race 2. But with that all out of the way, here are your official race results for the first race of this evening. Matthias Jensen takes the win there by 1 second over Kasper Stolzer. Magnus Vastersen there in P3 with Michael Pedersen. Well, he's classified P4. That'll be even further down the field once that penalty gets applied. Dennis Lin started P10. He finishes in the top 5. Johnny Nilsson, a big gain from P20 up into P6. Nick Madsen will finish P7 with Martin Bertelsen in P8. Daniel Nestoaretz in P9 with Sami Idrissi in P10.
Today's Wood Show was in 11th spot, started in 4th, but in the end couldn't get into the top 10 again. Thomas Wick started in 12th, finished in 12th rather, in front of Jesper Holmgaard. In 14th spot it was Thomas Larsson. In the 15th spot though was Miguel Sodergaard, who had an up and down race. We've seen Jorgensen rather get turned at one point. He still finished though in 16th. Jan Show with the black flag still recovered to a P17 finish, as the last driver of the lead lap was Simonson, Eriksson, and Jimmy Reimer, rounding out the drivers 1 lap down inside the top 20.
Daniel Falk Sorensen will finish P22 with Alexander Luritzen after that first lap incident. Ends up 6 laps down in P23. Rasmus Busk in P24. Lasse Bak, an early race leader, finishes in P25 with Ollie Oster. P26 with Andreas Joachimsen finishing out the field here, P27. Well, that's about all we have. That's about race 1 over here, but that is not the end of the racing here for the Danish Esports Racing Championship for this evening. Join us after this short break while we have the second qualifying session and the second race. Don't go away. It was a very, very tumultuous race one here for the pre-season of the Danish Esports Racing Championship. I am Connery Maddock, and of course, joining me on the broadcast, it is the one, the only Justin Prince. It was quite an involved race one, as I said, tumultuous, quite a lot of drama in this one, but now that everyone's got that out of their system, maybe we can have some fun here in this race too.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens in this race number 2. I'm hoping some of the emotions don't cross over from that race, but there was a lot of aggression. 4 wide into turn number 1 was one point of that. The battles were another point of that. But it's going to be curious to see how drivers react in race number 2 here, and what is now just partly cloudy skies with about the exact same track temperatures as we've seen at the start of qualifying number 1.
Yeah, indeed, we have a little bit of a practice session here, a little bit of a warm-up as well for those drivers to get themselves acclimatized to the new track conditions. In fact, we actually have qualifying underway already here in this one. Instead of the overcast conditions, we do have partly cloudy skies here for qualifying 2 and race 2. That means that track temperature is going to climb just a little bit, or you would have thought of, but that hasn't quite registered just yet. 21 degrees out there on circuit right now. The wind has calmed down just a tad, so that is going to make things maybe a little bit easier coming down into some of these braking zones. But right now, as the qualifying session starts to get itself underway, you can see Lasse back there, pole position in the previous qualifying session, wasn't really able to capitalize on it though.
Yeah, especially with that carnage on lap 1, turn 1. Eventually had to duck down to the pit lane on the first lap and kept it there for the rest of race number 1. But the Pro React Esports driver was the fastest car in practice 1. As you mentioned, the pole sitter here, 158.5 was the outlap, coming around for the first time. Took that high arc you've seen out of the Coca-Cola curve to try and bank it, so to speak, down that front stretch. The wind is still going to be a potential factor in the corners. However, it isn't exactly facing the straightaway this time to the start and finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason why, well, we have a more clear sky here, and not the overcast conditions that we had here for race 1, but it is later on in the day here in Sim, so we're just heading ourselves quickly towards 8 o'clock local time, which is why the track temperature wasn't really all that affected by the clouds breaking up a little bit. But Lasse back though, can't be concerned about that right now. He's on a flying lap here for this second qualifying. For him, it's just going to be a case of repeating what he was able to do just around about 30 minutes or so ago. Out of the Dunlop curve he goes, and it seems to be a relatively clean lap so far here for the driver of number 1.
He has kicked up touches of sand, though, on the lap. It's the question of, did he cross the plane too much to trigger the off-track? Remember, if you get an off-track on the iRacing service, it ends up disqualifying that particular lap. And we've seen how much of a difference in one lap the qualifying pace was, as much as 0.3 of a second for some of the fastest cars on the grid in Q1 for race number 1.
Yeah, indeed. Lasse back, though, in that NGK chicane for his flying lap, his first flying lap here today. Into that final corner as the sun starts to peek its way out of from behind a cloud here as he heads his way across the start-finish line at 151.5 there for Lasse back. That is the benchmark that everyone will start to chase now, coming towards the end of their first qualifying lap. Back the only qualifier as it stands at this moment in time, but we do have a couple of drivers heading their way out of the final corner. There is Dennis Lind. Needs a little bit of a better qualifying session this time around than what he was able to in qualifying 1. Across the line does not set a lap time, so he is going to have another opportunity here to try and get himself all the way back around. It was actually the start of his lap 1 there for Dennis Lind, so getting out a little bit later than most other people here as those lap times start to come in.
Yeah, some of the drivers, I think, just took their time to make sure they didn't overcook the tires. Lynn taking a lot of that time. Should mention, though, that back time matched his practice time at the start of the preseason events here tonight with that overcast sky. So the pace has picked up for back again a little bit more, as was for Pedersen, who, remember, had an aggressive race in race number 1 that led to the black flag. But keep an eye, as you said, on Lind here, because he's got himself a really solid pace on average in race trim on worn tires than the 53s, but needs to again get that track position that was so crucial for parts of that race last time.
Yeah, it was. So that is how crucial qualifying is here at the Nürburgring. Yet more lap times coming in. As you said, Pedersen up into P2, Jochimsen in P3 as it stands. Ericsson P4. So a couple of names getting themselves further up on the grid this time around. We're still paying attention, though, to Dennis Lind as he heads his way through that right-hand kink of turn 13 and then up into the NGK chicane for the end of his first flying lap. Behind the wheel of that Ferrari Singularity racing car. Through the final corner he goes. I'm a big fan of the pink wheels there as we get a good view of them coming through the final corner. On board with Dennis Lind as he heads his way across the line then. What time is it going to be? A 152.3. That's good enough for a top 5 start for now, but we still got a big chunk of the field yet to qualify.
And that's the pace that I was estimating there when he had that off track on his first lap of the first qualifying session. So much more improved this time to keep it inside the track limit. But we seen Lauritsen have a strong start, then get flipped over in the Mercedes arena. That was an interesting start to the race. But remember, he had a really good qualifying effort in the Launchek Giantis Esports machine last time around. It's already looking like the same type of lap this time, near identical lines he had before.
Yeah, he seems to be a rather consistent driver, at least while he's been running out on his own, and he hasn't been flipped onto his roof by another driver. But in towards the Dunlop hairpin he goes. Again, very, very clean coming through there. Not really tempting fate with the gravel on the outside of the corner. And how clean into the Michael Schumacher S's is he? That is pitch perfect coming through there. And so, some drivers tend to overcommit on that second apex. They run over the curb, dip 2 tires into the gravel. But Lauritsen, though, he was absolutely perfect coming through there. This is shaping up to be a great lap.
A really good lap, in fact, here. That time using just the edges here. We've seen a couple drivers keep an eye on this after the NGK chicane to try to use the rumble strips there. That is within the track limits. And some drivers may describe it actually a bit of an esports line, so to speak. Keep an eye on that there. Yes, indeed, uses that gray rumble strip to settle the car on the corner exit while making sure it's not in the grass to lose the traction. Power's down here. First lap was invalidated. Let's see the second lap total, 152.1 here. That puts him in the top 5 again.
Yeah, P4. So that is second row on the grid currently for Lauritsen. So a decent qualifying lap here as we're still waiting for a good couple of other drivers to get themselves laps set here. We have Ollie Oester that is currently out there. He had his first lap invalidated, so this is going to be his last chance to get himself anywhere near the top of the starting grid here today, lest he'll have to start right at the back. Again, 2 tires into the dirt a little bit there, coming out of the forward curve, turn 7, and now look to get yourself on the brakes in towards Dunlop. A little bit of an overcommitment there down on the entry to the corner. It is a corner where you can, if your style suits it, double apex into there, but didn't quite clip that first one perfectly, and is wide there through the first apex of that Schumacher S's. So it's a good comparison compared to the very, very clean lap of the driver of Lauritsen, and Oester here just having a couple of issues here getting this one strung together.
Remember, though, he's just coming off his first season in the series, and this time might be invalidated with that going off towards the sand trap there again. But remember, some drivers looking to get experience here. This is one of them here, this 19 machine.
Yeah, he's backed out.
And yes, indeed, that time is definitely invalidated here. So, unfortunately for him, he's not going to record a qualifying time for race 2.
Yeah, so that is unfortunate there for Oester. He has to start right at the back of the starting grid here for race number 2. Jan Schou, though, he's, Sko, as we'll get ourselves our pronunciations correct here, in towards the NGK chicane. A little bit of a missed apex there on that first one. That's going to lose him a little bit of time here. Is currently P20. Can Sko improve as he heads his way out of the final corner. Drive to the line then. Is it going to be a valid lap? It is not going to be a valid lap here for Jan Sko, so he will have to start in P20 here for race number 2. Well, here is your starting grid for that race number 2. Lasse Bak will start in pole position with Matthias Jensen in second place. Michael Pedersen will start in P3 with Alexander Luritzen on that second row as well. Andreas Joachimsen in P5 with Dennis Lind now starting in P6. Jim Brinkback will start P7 with Nick Madsen P8, Kasper Stolzer P9 with Christian Eriksson rounding out your top 10 starters.
Martin Bertelsen starts in 11th with Magnus Wason in 12th position in the 152.7s behind him. In 13th and 14th is Johnny Nielsen and Mikael Solgergaard in 14th spot. Daniel Nestrolich had a quiet run in 15th spot this time for race number 2, while Jasper Holmgaard starts in 16th in the number 7 car. Thomas Wick starts in 17th with Thomas Larson in 18th with RS Esport. In 19th is Jimmy Reimer. He also finished that race in part upside down. Still took the checkered flag, but starts in 19th. While Jan Skoll starts out in the 20th position.
Daniel Sørensen starts in P21 with Sami Idrissi P22. Rasmus Busk P23 on the starting grid for him with Dennis Simonsen in P24. And then you have your drivers further back that didn't get their qualifying times. In one of them is Ollie Oster, as he'll have to start right at the back of the starting grid here today. So drivers taking themselves to that aforementioned grid. We are just waiting for the driver that is currently sitting in P number 8, Nick Madsen, yet to get himself to the starting grid here. Just 10 seconds for him to be able to do so. And then we can get the race green flag racing here. For race 2 of this pre-season event. Those Ferrari notes will ring out here over the green hell. We'll get ourselves green flag racing here for race number 2. You can see the moves already being made there to cover off the inside line. Down in towards turn number 1. Your race leader very defensive. Here comes the Altus Esports car of Loretzi, and then he's able to make a position in towards P3. There's Joachimsen though. He's spun. He's being dragged across the circuit, across the nose of another driver there. Dennis Lind has been able to get himself involved in an early incident once again. It looks like for everyone else up and down your field, it seems to be a little bit cleaner than last time around. Joachimsen, the frustration's obvious. He runs straight into the back of Lind. There's a bit of retaliation.
Yeah, back-to-back races for Joachimsen, where he's been taken out on lap 1, essentially turn 1. Understand a bit of the frustration there, but most of the drivers, though, able to have a much cleaner start. Jensen back up into second spot again. We've seen him have a strong race last time. Nielsen already making the money moves into the Dunlap curve on lap 1 already. But a much cleaner run, including for a race leader in back. It was noted 7 seconds apparently was the penalty he had gotten on the first lap for his, apparently that too early start you had mentioned. Did not finish the race this time, is still in the lead while they continue to shuffle for positions.
Yep, they do. It's a little bit of confusion further back as drivers are having to serve themselves slow down penalties and impeding the rest of the cars behind them. That was Jan Sko getting very, very slow here. He started in the P20. He managed to somehow find himself all the way up into P10. He must have cut the course somewhere to get all of those overtakes done, which is why he's having to serve a slowdown penalty into the NGK chicane. That was Sorensen working his way through. He tags around Jan Sko, coming down into there though. So Sko's day goes from bad to worse once again here after getting that penalty in race 1, having those other issues in race 1 with the cell spins as well. It doesn't seem like things are getting any better for him.
Yeah, He's had horrible luck, Sko, today. Of course, involved in a couple incidents, got the black flag, 30-second hold last race, and then eventually lost his hood right afterwards. But better luck this time for Lorentzen. Still in third, back still in first. But Jensen, who was the fastest car on the long run in the end with all the attrition, is in the middle of that sandwich in second spot at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jensen having a very, very good run here today, or rather consistent run here on this first, well, 2 laps here. You can see the positions gained on the left-hand side of your screen. You can see that Wick has been able to gain a good couple of positions on the start. He started P17. He's up 8 positions now, up into P number 9. So he's had an absolutely fantastic start indeed. But one of the things, you know, for these drivers that do start a little bit further back here, Justin, once they gain all of those positions on the start, thanks to getting through instants, getting through on some drivers that have had slowdowns, etc., etc., the big trouble for them then comes in actually holding those positions when it gets to the later point in the race.
Yeah, you see some drivers have already lost some spots, like Bertelsen, -4, even with some of the attrition around him. -4 for Larson, -14 for Ericsson with the incidents going on. So drivers are already going backwards, you mentioned there. It's just a matter of, can you get back forward with a lot of these battles still shaping up on the track? Because you don't want to be one of these 3 drivers that have already lost 20 or 15 spots and are already in the garage area with the race number 2 of the preseason already done here. But the top 3 already separated by just a second. 1 second is the gap to Pedersen, though, for 4th. But some of the faster times are about 8th on back at the moment in that drafting train, starting to form up.
Yeah, absolutely. So the draft coming into full effect here in this one. You can see the great overhead view here. Down in towards that very tricky turn number 1. There's a driver that pushed a little bit wide. That was Daniel Sorensen having a couple of issues down into there. And now Martin Bertelsen is right on the back of him as they head their way through turn number 3. Through the right-hander, turn number 4 as well. Bertelsen looking to get a good run out of there, but the car just completely snapped on him. And sometimes these Ferraris, these GT3 Ferraris, can be a little bit nervous, so it's not a driver that you could just take out and be relatively secure in your driving of it, like the AMG Mercedes GT3 car, for example. This one is a little bit more nervous.
Yeah, with the Ferraris, there's a lot of power in these cars, in the 6 shifts of gears, etc. with them, but you can see it here. The bit of the braking points are different. There are some differences between the various GT3 cars. You can see some of them at full effect.
Oh.
It's not used the most, but that time the aggression spins around the 029 into the tires.
Yeah, side by side through the Michael Schumacher S's doesn't really tend to work, as Bertelsen, he broke a little bit earlier trying to not run into the back of the car ahead of him, but it just straight lined the entry to the corner and went directly into the side of Woodshaw, who was trying to work his way around the outside in that situation, backs it up into the tires. He's able to keep going, though not going to retire that car just at this moment in time. We'll see a bit of side-by-side up and towards the NGK chicane now. That is Busk versus Jorgensen. This is for position P15 and P16 as they'll sort themselves out coming through that final corner of the Coca-Cola curve. So despite a couple more incidents here and there in race 2, it does seem like drivers are just a little bit more calm than they were in race 1.
Yeah, I mean, race 1 was... yeah, just a little smidgen. It was dialed up to 11 in race 1. Today, in race 2, it's more at a 7.5 maybe out of 10 at the moment. So drivers are a little bit more calmer. Wanting to finish off on a positive note here. They still have 18 minutes and 32 seconds to go on the clock to try and gain up some times here, such as for Bass, trying to pull away from Jorgensen for 15th position here. So you may as well finish on a positive note. You don't want to finish without a race car.
Yeah, that is the main thing. You want to get to that checkered flag at the end of the event, especially for a preseason race like this, where you're just starting to figure out where you are in relation to the competition coming into the second season of this championship. Pedersen's pushed wide though for P3, and that just allows Laritzen to cycle his way through. That was a gift on a silver platter there for the driver of the number 9. We'll get a replay.
And we were talking about some of the differences with GT3s. Cars like the Audi are better in the corners and somewhat more preferential. Ferraris with the straight line speed not as strong in the corners, and you can see there, just that time, getting a bit later on the brakes was Pedersen, trying to actually get along that green AstroTurf, and just couldn't get the apex in the end. Let's right on by the Logitech Altus Esports driver onto the podium, but they also lost a couple seconds with that.
Yep, they did. And, you know, every single moment where you're not able to run the ideal racing line here, it really, really does hurt you compared to the drivers that are able to do so. You can see the big stack up of a train behind Lauritsen at this stage. So that's what Lauritsen's trying to pull away from, but the draft still keeping these guys in contention for now. So he has to work at this over the next couple of laps if he's going to have a chance at dropping them, and then maybe have a chance at catching your race leaders by the time that this race is done. But in towards turn 6 they go. No one really close enough to be able to make any bold moves just yet, like we saw down in towards the Ford chicane a couple of times. We have Martin Bertelsen has been given a 30-second stop and hold penalty there. So he's going to have to come down on towards the lane to serve that one. And, well, I don't think he'll be the first one to be penalized here in this race. In fact, he isn't, because we had Jochems in it a little bit earlier on. Yeah, that one was further retaliation, but I think, give or take, we've seen 4 or 5 black flags pop up in race number 1. But that's to be expected. The reason for Bertelsen, though, was that I think that checkup really that bottled everybody up and caused that contact at the end here. But Pedersen is now struggling a lot here. It looks like with some of the grip off the corners and the apexes here, he's really lost Lauritsen, who was 7/10 quicker last time by, and Brickback, who also, mind you, was a driver last race that had to serve a penalty. He's having a much better race and is already looking like he's got a decent pace to get himself 4th here. Yeah, Brinkback looking particularly strong here in race 2. You can see him trying to work his way, you know, just trying to lock onto the back of that Prologue React esports car ahead of him, but you can just see that Pedersen starts to pull away here coming down the pit straight thanks to, well, you know, thanks to maybe a little bit of a lower downforce setup there, a lower wing setting on that GT3 Ferrari can sometimes negate the effect of the draft a little bit or make it less effective for those drivers behind. But Brinkback still keeping himself in contention here. Coming through the Mercedes-Benz Arena, turn 3 can follow very, very tightly to that rear diffuser of the Ferrari ahead of him. And then the exit of turn 4 sets yourself up for maybe an opportunity in towards turn 6. But not going to happen this time around. And you can just see that Lauritsen in that Alta C sports car just pulling away, dropping the rest of the field. And all of a sudden, these guys are going to be pretty much alone in their trio for the battle for P3. Battle for P4. There we go. We can't get ahead of ourselves. Yes. But it could potentially turn into 5th here soon, because that's the thing. I could see him falling back, even to Nick Madsen, who is currently looking to chase after 5th position, because here's the thing. If this was a longer race, say 4 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, I would be maybe content to save fuel and stay behind, tucked in behind. But with only 25 minutes, you kind of need to press that go button. You can't afford to stay behind a slower car for a couple laps. If you get a run, you have to essentially take it here. There's just 8 estimated laps to go. I wouldn't be surprised if Brinkback tries to do that. In turn, that pulls Madsen back in, and in turn, Pedersen loses some time, because Pedersen, you see here, is struggling now a lot, it seems, on more so the right-hand turns than the left-handers. Yeah, he's really struggling with a good couple of those, and well, maybe that's something that Brinkback has noticed. Maybe it's something he can capitalize on a little bit later on, but across the line they go, and Pedersen, well, he's been able to edge out 0.2 of a second that last time around, so he's looking to drop Brinkback here as well. So Brinkback, at least on that last lap, struggled to hold on, but Pedersen, he's been prone to a couple of mistakes, especially in that first race. So there's still potentially the chance that Brinkback may have a little bit of an easier time here. He gained actually a bunch of time there coming through the first sector. So it's just, you know, this gap fluctuating in and out. Pedersen seems to be better in the latter sectors, but Brinkback's very strong in that first. Yeah, and you've seen it there with Pedersen actually taking that higher run through turn 1, much more wider the arc, and much more wider here on the Dunlap curve, and trying to diamond it on down. Well, it seems like Brinkback is trying to get it right down towards the rumble strips for that corner, right down to the apex, and then try and go higher off the corner run. It seems, though, for Pedersen, it actually is helping a little bit in some of the sections, not all of them.
in sector 2 and 3 to try and gain some time back. All of a sudden now, Pedersen has actually turned the switch back to his direction, has now pulled this gap by 5 car lengths.
Yeah, indeed. So Pedersen really, really on a roll here, coming through the middle of this race. Of course, through that energy gauge again, once again, you do have to be quite careful of the curves there. It, mounts the one on the entry in towards the Coca-Cola curve. You brought that up a little bit earlier, Justin, as the quote-unquote esports line. As, if you do that in a real car, then maybe you'll be causing a little bit of damage. But here, it's seemingly fine, as you can get that maximum exit. Coming out, good mid-corner speed through the final corner, usually results in a good exit speed as well, and that is crucial when you're coming down the pit straight, especially when turn 1 is such a big overtaking opportunity. But drivers keeping it calm for now, which is what we like to see, especially after that first race here in that top 5. All just working themselves around. We do have a couple of battles further back though, and just as I say things are calm, Daniel Sorensen through turn 1 has made an error, goes out into the gravel. Was it an error that was helped by someone though? It was. Lars Jorgensen runs into the back of him, coming down into the braking zone, and yeah, that is absolutely unfortunate there for Sorensen. Not his fault at all. He got completely rear-ended, and sometimes that can easily happen, especially into a very heavy braking zone. You're braking from a high-speed straight all the way down into a very tight hairpin there, so any slight differences in braking points is going to be exacerbated.
And he's seen a bit of the replay there too. The earlier braking point, I think Jorgensen was aiming for the 100 in marker. That's on the left side of the track if you look at turn 1, for example. Those little markers to help you with the braking line. It looked like that the car in front was going for the 150 braking marker as soon as it went out of his viewpoint, and that just threw everything off for that entire group in just no time to respond. He tried to make sure to avoid contact in the end, though all of the drivers lose a lot more time in some more spots of the racetrack. Now it's 16th and 17th, those drivers. Well, these two battle for P9.
Yep, P9 on the cards is a battle here. Through the latter portion of the lap here, Thomas Wick in that number 44 trying to defend from the number 7. That's Holmgaard there. We've had another moment, I believe, down in towards the first turn, and that was actually just Thomas Larson coming out the pit lane. So that's why that flashed up as yellow on my timing screens here. As Wick then not going to defend the move down in towards turn number 1. Holmgaard, his body language of his car is looking very, very aggressive, and well, is able to follow very closely coming out of turn 1 through turn 2. Wick has the better line coming through there, but Holmgaard seems to have the pace over him at this stage. A little bit of an overcommitment there in towards turn 3 for Wick, as Holmgaard looks to try and find an opportunity, but no obvious one has shown itself just yet.
And mind you, those cars may look very similar, same color schemes, but they're on 2 different teams, mind you. The Northside Racing car is the driver in front. G4 Sport, and Holmgaard is the one on the chase, though. And their cars have looked pretty decent, the G-Force machines, all race night long here in this preseason event. I think Holmgaard, though, is waiting until a decent opportunity pops out. With how many drivers have ruined their races by making contact, by forcing it in, I think he's just waiting for that one mistake in a rough corner exit for Wick to try and make that move work.
Yeah, indeed. Again, deep on the brakes into turn 11 as well. It seems like Holmgaard is not afraid of using the full braking facility here on these Ferrari GT3 cars. Much more confident when it comes to getting that car slowed down. And Wick just has to be very, very careful about that fact, because in towards turn 1, if Holmgaard is able to brake so much later, then he might be able to make a pass from a good couple of car lengths back if it's not defended here from Wick, as Wick takes a very big wide arc coming through the final corner. Late apex, get that launch off the corner, try and negate the effect of the draft here, which he's done very well. I don't think Holmgaard can strike here from this far back. You can see him go relatively deep on the brakes anyway, trying to gain a couple of tenths of a second in the braking zone, and well, not really making all that much progress, it has to be said. He was closer coming through here on the last lap, so Wick's has done a good job to manage this gap.
Yeah, he actually gained 2 tenths of the last lap specifically here, and He was right near the gearbox, the back bumper towards the engine compartments last time. This time it looks like the tires are starting to give up a little bit. While the track temp has slightly gone down, remember, with the sunlight hitting some portions, it can affect things a bit. And the speeds are going to be a bit more different, as we've already talked about a little bit with these partly cloudy skies. I think he's just not getting that corner exit grip. He wants to have that confidence to launch off the corner like I think he wants to try and reel in P9.
Yeah, that has to be the ultimate objective here in this situation. There's a battle pack behind these guys as well, involving P11, P12, P13. That order is Sondergaard, Idrissi, Uster at this stage, and well, they've had a little bit of a swap on this past lap as Sondergaard was able to get around Idrissi, but Idrissi looks to reply here around the outside at turn 11, not going to quite work, forces Sondergaard to go defensive into 12. That sets up Idrissi for a run out of this corner, and he's able to get it. Cars with the space on the left-hand side of the circuit as they'll go side by side through turn 13, and then who's going to back out here up into the chicane? Is it going to be Idrissi? Is it going to be Sondergaard? Sondergaard is the one that has to back out around the outside, so Idrissi is able to make his way back past after Sondergaard got that pass done a little bit earlier on in the lap.
Yeah, the Prologue React Esport founder for that organization and 3 years of iRacing experience. It seems like he's got a good pace. The problem is he keeps on making these little mistakes that allow the drivers to get back in. Part of the reason they allowed themselves into the battle had dropped about a full second the lap prior to wear himself back in. He just needs to get the consistency down here. Mistakes like that are why every time it seems he starts to get a position, everybody else reels him back in within a quarter of a lap and trying to attack him like Sondergaard just tried to do on the outside of the exit of the Mercedes arena.
Cut back off the corner for Sondergaard as outside line, inside line. Which way does he even decide to go? He commits down the inside at turn 6, but can't complete the move down into there. Outside for the Ford curve. Similar luck coming through there. And now Idrissi still has yet more defensive work to do. Inside there for the Dunlop curve. He's able to cover. Sondergaard again looking for a wide, well, sort of late apex there off the corner to get the run, but he's not able to in this case. Still relatively close coming through the Michael Schumacher S's as Idrissi holding very strong at the front of this trio despite all of the pressure that Sondergaard is piling onto the back of him. You know, a car length between them at this stage. Again, a big wide arc taken by Sondergaard, and this one might be a little bit more fruitful. This time inside here for turn 13. Driver's right-hand side of the racetrack up towards the NGK chicane. Still side by side, but this time it's Idrissi that needs to back out of the corner. Sondergaard's gone a little bit too deep into the chicane, and now here comes Uster outside. His inside was defended, and actually that's Idrissi still trying to get one back over Sondergaard. They will go door to door down the start-finish straight, but it doesn't look like Idrissi has enough speed. You can see them snaking, trying to break the draft. Towards the inside goes Sondergaard to try and cover that one off. Back to the middle of the racetrack. Idrissi, where does he decide to go here? Does he decide to go for the cutback off the corner? Well, he's going to attempt it, but Sondergaard has the better line coming through the middle of the corner. This is fantastic battling between these three, Justin.
Yeah, really good racing for these drivers, giving each other space, not getting towards where they're squeezing each other off the racetrack, so to speak, or risking too much contact, if any, at the moment. Nice, clean, hard racing for this position. By the way, the battle for second has gotten within a couple car lengths now. Jensen is getting to the point of defensive lines with Lawrenson already able to reel him back in as we keep an eye on this battle up on your screen.
Yep, indeed. So a couple of places to pay attention to here in this one. The battle for P11, though, a little more strung out than we've seen it coming down in towards the Dunlop hairpin. So maybe this one is sealed. Maybe this has a little bit of life left in it. It's just that Idrissi needs that good run out of the Schumacher S's, but he had a little bit of a slide there coming through the exit of it, so wasn't able to gain a lot of time. Instead loses it, and now Oester's right on the back of this one, coming up towards that Bilstein curve, turn number 12. Oester not able to make much progress though, despite him making lots of progress in the race itself. Started P26, currently up into P13. So seemingly a good race 2 there for the driver of the number 19. In towards the final couple of corners of the race, we will have 2 laps to go here as Lasse back heads himself through the Mercedes-Benz arena. Lauritsen and what is going to be Jensen, well, they're coming through the Mercedes-Benz arena. Lauritsen still not quite in with an opportunity here, but speaking of opportunities, Öster might just have one down in towards turn 1. Angles towards the inside, doesn't commit though, but Adrissi, again, a slight missed apex there as some of these drivers, Justin, are seemingly very susceptible to being scared off the racetrack.
A little bit here, it looks like. Adrissi, that time, though, didn't look that direction. It's been more so he's been struggling on the exit of turn 1 and grip mainly into 2, 3, and 4 of the Mercedes arena that's lost him time. But when you have a driver try and send it hard from behind, do you want to hold the line and risk getting rear-ended? Or do you try and anticipate missing the contact? Most of the time in race 2, after what we've seen from the first one, we've seen more of the latter, where drivers are anticipating the dive from behind and giving space and having drivers outdrive themselves like that.
Yeah, that is going to be the final nail in the coffin then, in terms of his hopes for further progress in this race, unless something happens to any of the 12 cars currently ahead of him here in the standings. As Lasse back, he heads himself towards the start-finish line, so he'll have one more lap to go here. Battle for P number 5 though. Brinkback has some company. Nick Madsen here coming up through the Coca-Cola curve. That is a very good run off the corner as well. He has the slipstream. He'll have the opportunity in towards turn 1. There's the defensive move then for Brinkback into the braking zone for turn 1. Madsen around the outside, looking for the speed off. Might be able to make it around the outside here for turn 2. He's going to commit to it. Not quite there as there's a bump through the corner. A shot to the back and Brinkback. Well, he's spun in the middle of the circuit. So contact for P5 as we'll head ourselves back towards maybe that battle for P2 out there on circuit. Jensen has been able to manage the gap there in that one as guys further back, Brinkback and Madsen, they're still stuck together and they still might have a further altercation in towards turn number 6 this time around. It depends how angry at each other. Maybe there's some blood in the water that Johnny Nielsen can sense as well, as these guys ahead of him have already come together in this race. So it's still going to be a battle for P5. These guys had a huge gap behind them to be able to slot themselves in the same positions that they were before that contact happened. There is Lasse back though. He's heading his way out of turn 12, the Bilstein curve, and then through turn 13, that right-hand kink. It was race 1 that got away from Lasse back inside the first couple of laps, but this time no foot has been put wrong for the driver of the number 1. Just one more corner to go and he'll be the winner here for race 2 of your Danish Esports Sim Racing Championship pre-season event here at the Nürburgring with these Ferrari GT3 machines. Lasse back wins here at the Nürburgring. A little bit of a look back here to P5 though. Nick Madsen has been able to get himself up inside that top 5. Just one more corner to go for these guys. Madsen made a little bit of a mistake in towards that final corner, but Nick Madsen will come out on top of this particular battle. He will finish inside the top 5 after a fantastic battle inside that pack coming towards that checkered flag.
Yeah, and that pass was able to get done on an aggressive move on the inside of the Michelin curb. Sent it on the inside, able to make that line stick and kind of try and force it on the high side for the Warnsteiner curb. Just able though, because of that, being able to hold it that high side, just force the driver above to get off the gas to make sure he didn't make contact, secure himself into what appears to be the top 5 here at this checker flag unofficially.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant race from everyone at the front of your field here today. Lasse back, P number 1 in qualifying, P number 1 here in race 2 of this pre-season event. Matthias Jensen will finish in P2 with Alexander Lauritsen. After a terrible race 1, he's able to recover things here in race 2 onto that podium. Michael Pedersen, well, he loses one position in towards P4 there, with Nick Madsen managing to steal P5 away right in the dying moments, away from Jim Brinkback, who ends up finishing in P6. Johnny Nielsen will finish P7 with Thomas Wick P8, with Jesper Holmgaard in P9, with Kasper Stolzer rounding out your top 10.
11th spot is Mikael Sodergaard, who was amongst that battle we were watching for 11th spot. Some good running for the Radicals Online driver, though. The Pro React Esport driver, Sammy Adrissi, finished in behind him in P12. Should note the reason showing death on back. There was a black flag to Madsen that just cycled him back to 19th on the spot. That was from that first contact we've seen in the Mercedes Arena. The driver's now scoring in front of him. Ole Oster, Rasmus Busk, Jimmy Reimer on that. Lars Jorgensen, along with Jan Skoll, along with Daniel Sorensen, Daniel Nestorolic with an Eric Wyatt race in 18th. The driver scored behind Madsen with the time penalty was Christian Eriksen.
Yeah, indeed. And now we look towards the bottom end of your field. Thomas Larsen 2 laps down there, P21, with Matthias Woodshow in P22. Dennis Simpson, P23, with Martin Bertelsen rounding out your top 24 here. Dennis Lind, a terrible race 2 for him, ends up finishing P25. Andreas Joachimsen, P27, and Magnus Östersson in P26 here today. Well, we'll just take ourselves a little bit of a break here, but don't go away because we have the post-race show coming up just after this.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $400,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
A bit of a calmer race then for race 2 here of the pre-show, the basically pre-season event here for the Danish Esports Racing Championship. I'm Connery Maddock, joining me in the commentary booth as ever, Justin Prince, and well, we've had a very, very interesting, very frantic 2 races here today to set ourselves up for the new season. Just give me your general vibe.
Well, that was some aggressive racing for parts of it, but that shows in the end, though, once things settle down for race number 2, that these drivers are willing to fight for positions. And as well, when clean, can put on an absolutely phenomenal show. We've seen that all day, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of drivers hungry to try and fight for this year's championship in this series. It's going to be a heck of a run, I think, this year, especially with the prize pool. A lot of these drivers will have an eye on.
Yeah, indeed. Well, the top 10 drivers at least will get themselves a bit of a driving experience behind a real race car. So that will be an absolutely fantastic experience for them. You can see the calendar. Just have a refresh of that one up on screen for you now. It's the first race of the season. Going to be in just over a month's time, the 6th of November. And then we'll finish things off there for the 1st of April 2020. So 8 races here in this one to try and decide who finishes where at the end of the season. I can't wait to get the season started, because if it's anything like this, maybe if we, have things just a little bit cleaner, we will be in for an absolutely fantastic season.
I think they're definitely going to be cleaner, especially with points on the line and not wanting to risk things with the championship on the line. I think with it being the preseason, it was a chance for some drivers to get their feet wet, some of them to get used to standing starts, some of them to get used to racing against Schwarzenegger again for the start of this upcoming season. once the green flag flies, though, on November the 6th, I expect to see some phenomenal battles, albeit much more clear throughout the 8 races on the schedule.
Yeah, and of course in this preseason event we'll get ourselves a little bit of an idea of who are the likely runners at the front in terms of the championship. Lassie back though, fantastic effort here today. Race 1 didn't exactly go his way, but when it comes to qualifying, absolutely perfect. He was able to get the race win here in race 2 as well, so Beck is a big contender coming into next season.
I think we're absolutely going to have some great contenders for this upcoming season. And we've seen really that top 3 be probably some of our favorites overall. I wouldn't be surprised to see guys like Lind, as we've seen, try to attack their way up to the grid, like Casper Schultz also attack their way up the grid. A lot that can happen, though, in the regular season through a span of 8 races.
Yep, indeed. We'll get ourselves a little bit of a discussion with Thor Qualman, who is basically your lead administrator here for the Danish Esports Racing Championship. Thor, just give me your opinion of the racing that we've had here today.
Well, first of all, hello to all, and thank you all for watching. I kind of agree with you. It was a very interesting race 1 with a lot of bumping and grinding, but that's how it is. It's like last year we had the pre-race, and people just have to get used to it, and maybe they haven't been practicing a lot because it's just a pre-race before the season.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of drivers out there perhaps just a little bit rusty when it comes to dealing with the car and dealing with the racecraft as well. But, in and amongst the instance, we did see some absolutely brilliant racing here, which, coming into the start of the season, you've got to see that as a positive as well.
Yeah, definitely. We have some completely new drivers for this race that I haven't seen before, so it's gonna be really interesting for the season to kick off. We implemented some new regulations for this season. We changed from Audis to Ferraris. We are having a standing start, and during the season, everybody is up for vote before the actual race which track to drive on. So it's gonna be you don't have these 4 weeks to put a lot of effort into the training and do 3,000 laps. You kind of have to adapt to what it becomes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's really a big question mark coming into any of these races where you'll actually be racing. So maybe that levels the playing field a little bit when it comes to a couple of drivers that maybe are not able to put in the hours and hours and hours that it requires to practice for some of these things. But, coming into the start of the season now, is there, anyone working in the background behind the organization, behind the league that makes it all possible for you guys?
Yeah, we have a great team of race stewards. We had 4 race stewards doing a great job. I guess they were busy through both of the races, but also we have partnered up with new sponsors, and partners for bringing up the prize pool worth of 20,000 euros for the coming season. So it's really going to be worth driving this championship, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be brilliant, and coming into the season, we are definitely looking forward to some fantastic racing here in the Danish Esports Racing Championship. Thank you, Thor Qualman, for joining us here in this post-race show. And Justin, just to give you a little bit of a last couple of words here, with what we've seen today, coming into the actual championship in a month's time, this will be one of the series to watch here on the iRacing Esports Network.
I have to agree with you there, especially he mentioned there with the not a lot of time for drivers to get used to the track. Some drivers would usually go 3-4 weeks at a time to prepare, but with a little preparation, that can create potentially some unpredictability, some drivers having to learn on the fly, so to speak, and in the end, some exciting racing once more. I can't wait to see what happens at the start of the season.
I certainly can't wait either. That is all that we're going to have time for here this evening for the Danish Esports Racing Championship. Ferrari GT3 Challenge here at the Nürburgring. It was a pre-season event, but you don't want to go anywhere because we're going to be a month's time here. The round 1 of the championship is going to get itself started, and we certainly cannot wait for that one. I've been Conor Matic, that's been Justin Prince. We've had Hugo Luis behind the cameras, pushing all those buttons to make those fantastic graphics work. And of course, we've had Esteban Ballo providing our track cameras, trackcams22.com, if you want to go and see the product that he offers. That's going to be it here. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And, well, a month's time is when the season starts. So put that in your calendars and join us here on RaceSpot TV on the iRacing Esports Network for that.